looked at is that, the store has the ability to obtain a certain, alcohol license. Scott, you can help me kind of.
Yeah, so
go through
actually,
a little bit.
that terminology, in our ordinance, the ability to demonstrate a quantifiable need. For those of you remember Oscar King used to serve on the planning commission. That language actually came out of his mouth into, a circuit court brief that I had written when actually prior to, long ago, when they were trying to turn that into a market. That entity that was applying for that had requested, the use of a liquor license, but ultimately the city had denied that, request. It's under the same process and procedures. The ordinance was amended just prior to that, based on that suggestion, and the circuit court upheld that it really, it's kind of a term of art, that they are able to demonstrate a need, quantifiable for that use in that area. The closest example of what has been successful and others have utilized has been the state's licensing quota system, saying that if there's this many licenses available to the community, then therefore it's been determined that this amount of need would be satisfied with this many licenses. This is a little bit different of a situation with the BP, because they're not actually utilizing any of the licenses that were issued by Lathrop Village or issued to Lathrop Village under the Liquor Control Commission. My understanding is that, and I don't see any representative from that group here, they may be here.
Yeah, they requested come to
Okay.
court, right? Yeah.
But Dave Draper, their attorney, and Todd Perkins had indicated that they actually purchased a license from another community and they're transferring an additional license in. So, and the historic concern has been that the city, once they give out all of their licenses, that they're not able to obtain new ones unless it's by a transfer in. So, planning commission was satisfied with their demonstration of need based on that position, and that's why they made the motion to recommend approval of the city council.
So this wouldn't actually happen, but in theory, like the city's got, I think, 3 licenses that we're, I think.
So I'm not sure, I'd have to double check and verify. I wanna say, I thought we were down to our last one.
There's 1 left,
Yeah.
but there are 3 total.
Correct.
2 of them are already assigned.
And well, I think there were 4 and one of them may have been transferred out.
Transferred out.
Of the city, so, but yeah, I think there's 1 unassigned, 1 left, or it may actually be an escrow.
Sure, that would make sense, connected to the property that is not using that license that
Right.
was initially authorized for. But if you are able to buy, or a business owner could buy licenses from other communities and transfer them in, then you could potentially have an unlimited number of liquor licenses in the city.
Theoretically, yes, which, like I said, that's kind of that argument that, we made to the circuit court, which was approved, the demonstration of the need. There really isn't anything to support that. There's no, statutory authority that I'm aware of, or case law other than that one, where that term has ever been challenged, so. And again, the argument that was kind of used there was that, that they, it was a use that was, or they weren't able to, because the use had already been satisfied by the licenses that were issued, so.
Right, so if the need is satisfied by the license is issued, then there's really no need to bring in additional licenses, correct?
That, again, that was our argument with respect to that particular use,
Yeah,
so, but, that one never made it past the planning commission.
yeah, okay.
Is this technically like setting a precedent or no?
Well, again, each case is assessed on a case-by-case basis, so they would have to meet all the requirements of the ordinance. The city has granted, well, either, whether it be across the street, they granted one of the licenses for that was formerly, Salvatore Scalapini's that was approved. We did, I believe we ultimately did a beer and wine for
The
the
previous, before that, wasn't it? Didn't we do a beer and wine?
I'm trying to think-
And they took it with them.
Yeah, but so there's different classifications of
Right.
licenses. Those are
Bistro.
for on-site consumption. That's the one that left initially.
Do you have like a document that shows exactly where in like the village center, the liquor licenses are. Because Southfield, they have a document that they provide their city council with, just like where they're located, which I think.
That might be something,
good
I'm looking
for
at
the
Liquor
future.
Control Commission right now, that's likely something that comes from, sorry, it's like warm nights. Sweat, it's not cause I'm struggling with this, but,
Oh, I know you're not.
no, let's see, active and escrow license, you got it, okay. Yeah, so we've got, Vintage Village has, these are these, that's the,
Jagged Fork.
Jagged Fork Village Square. But these are all the SDB, SDM, those are off premises license.
Right.
Only active on premises is J Fork.
What about the one across the street?
It's not active.
Yeah.
What it-
It's active or escrow.
Cause he was bringing that from Southfield, right?
No, this is from, Michigan Liquor Control Commission.
No, I'm saying across the street. was-
Oh, yeah, I think that's where it's
It's
coming
from-
from, not,
It's, yeah, the public report, yeah.
can you go to, available, quote available?
I can play around with it.
Yeah, so
This
this
was just the.
Okay. Jagged Fork is the other one, but those were, they're evaluated under the same ordinance, because any establishment, whether for on-premise consumption or requires that same demonstration of that quantifiable need. So that, again, that was what was utilized, in previous examples, or previous applicants. That's what they presented the planning commission this last go around, so.
Yeah, I just thought the map was quite helpful for everyone, so just maybe in.
It's not something that we've ever generated. There was a resident, Tom Bainbridge, he had his own homemade map that he would bring pretty much to every meeting that would show where all of the local establishments were within, I think it was within the 2.5, 3 mile radius that he had done, but nothing that the city produces. So yeah, we have, this is the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, so on premise, we've been allowed three have been issued, there's 0 left, that's for on premise consumption. And then for off premise, SDB, which I believe is liquor, 2 are allowed, 2 have been issued. And then for beer and wine, 5 are allowed, 1 has been issued and 4 are available. And
Those on premise or off?
those are both on premise, so the SDD and SDM are both off premise. So one is, I may have mixed up, but just based on the number allocated, usually they allocate less liquor and more beer and wine. So according to that, we have 4 beer and wine licenses available.
And the
And
special,
again, these aren't, what they're proposing to bring in is not from, would not impact that.
it wouldn't come out of that count that
Correct.
you're looking at, they're bringing their own licenses from another.
Correct, so that would go against whatever community Southfield, that would go against their quota, which it's likely, these licenses are often sold,
Right.
you know, just like real estate, that, it's already probably off their books.
What type did you say was you said we had two allowed and 2 issued, what category was that?
On premise.
On-premise SDD,
No, SDB's off premise, it's just on premise.
no, this one's 2 allowed, 2 issued.
Is this something you?
Wait.
Oh, go ahead.
Wait, now I'm confused, so you said you had 3, I thought you said we had 3 on premise, 3 issued, 0 left,
Correct.
so that's,
So that's the on-premise, then there's the SDD off-premise and the SDM off-premise.
SDD off premise is liquor, SDM is beer and wine, and then it's just on premise for bars and restaurants.
Any other questions? Next is partnership agreements.
So this is something that's also on your guys' regular agenda for consideration tonight. We wanted to put it on this study session agenda, just kind of talk it out, see if you guys have any initial questions. I did get note over the weekend that Laker Village Women's Club does want theirs pulled, they wanna review it again as a group before it comes before you guys. But the other two are still ready to move forward, and they are expected to be at the regular meeting tonight to answer any questions for you guys. But as you guys know, over the past, or January, February, March timeframe, we started looking at our facility rental agreement, how we can rework it, how we work with fees, and we came up with a system on how individuals or groups could request discounts or get usage of the room. One of those options was entering into a partnership agreement with the city. So the process for that was having these groups pitch the idea to the city. What do they want from the city and what are they gonna give us in return? So in your packet, for a couple of their consideration, we have Boys to Men and Laker Village Historical Society. Boys to Men naturally wants some usage of the rooms, naturally, whether it's meeting space or council chambers, conference room for monthly meetings. And then they want 2 or 3 usage of the community room, throughout the calendar year. And in return, they would give us 100 volunteer hours that's approved by city staff. So that's one for consideration. And then the Historical Society, naturally, the Historical Society has a lot of great information that they've collected over the years. Currently, it is stored at the Southfield Library, and they would like to bring it back to Laker Village. And as you guys know, we no longer have the gym space downstairs in City Hall. So when I met with Robin from the Historical Society, that seemed like a good place, a good use of space, because as right now, it's kind of just filled with random storage we're putting down there right now. We think it would be good opportunity to revitalize that space. So they're looking to do that. They'll cover all the moving costs, and then for us, they will be essentially our historic stewards for the city with everything all in one central location.
Is there anything like when they're storing it at Southfield Public Schools? Is it like
Library.
Library? I'm sorry. Is it like like it has to be this amount of like the degrees in the room or something, or is it just in a storage unit? Or
Fire
storage.
safe or things like
Yeah.
that.
Talking with Robert, she didn't give me anything specifics like that. If anything, that'd be their cost. If they want some very historical documents protected like that, then they would be required to purchase those fire safe storage cabinets and things like that. But
I was just
she didn't
curious,
mention
like-
anything like that.
Yeah, a lot of them were in a fire.
And a flood.
And a flood.
Yeah.
And mice.
Yeah.
And mice.
Yeah, I was just curious because like, well, if they bring it here, is Southfield, is the library doing anything special that they should be doing here when they bring it back?
And that'd probably be a great question for our conversations. Now, if anything is more of a burden that they have to go all the way to Southfield and schedule a time for librarians to get to the stores and things like that to get access.
Before you finish, do you want to?
Oh, she's back there.
Hi, Robin.
Excuse me,
What?
thank you. Go ahead.
Okay.
We're still in the meeting.
We'll
process.
get
Right, okay, but I'm here if you have questions.
Okay,
but-
okay.
Well, before we get into the specifics of the 3, I just have some general comments about the partnership agreements. You know, I think they're good. I think we need to have them as, you know, cause I agreed with the way we set up the community room. But when I was going through the proposals, at least for me, it seemed like, not so much the Historical Society, but the other 2 were asking for a lot of usage. And, you know, our revenue is pretty tight. We know we're gonna have problems next year. We formed a finance committee because we know there are some big things coming up that we don't have this year, like a police contract, which can add $200,000 to the general fund, and other things as well. So I'm personally, I'm in favor of granting some discounts or some free usage, but with some parameters around it. Like right now, I know some of them were asking for, I think maybe 3, and then possibly, I think one of them said 3 and maybe another one. You know, I'd like to limit that to, you know, maybe 2. And I think one of those should be, give them, you know, one maybe on a weekend, but the other one needs to be during the weekday, because that takes away $400+ worth of revenue.
Are you talking specifically about the community room use?
Community room, right now,
Just the community.
for that, this particular comment, the community room. You know, because again, if they're using it, you know, if they're using it 2 or 3 times on the weekend, that's 2 or 3 times that we're losing out on an opportunity of $400+, you know, or more, for each opportunity. The other thing, you know, was a little bit of a surprise, you know, that I think both of them were asking for 6, 8 usage of times usage of this room, which again, I think is reasonable, but after business hours, because one of the problems that we were having is we've got two offices up here, and it was a constant problem when it was in use. Yeah, so I just think we need to put some parameters on it. You know, I think we wanna be generous, but we also have to keep in mind the fact that we've got some financial constraints that we're dealing with and govern accordingly.
I think that, those are reasonable. I think, you know, we could say for the meeting place in particular, use outside of normal operating hours unless approved by the administrator, because there may be a situation where
They're not here or whatever.
somebody's not here, or, you know, the situation, makes it possible for a meeting to occur, and here is no reason to deny it just because.
Right, but I don't think,
Policy says so.
we don't want, I know there were like some situations where we were asking them to leave during the middle of the
Yeah.
day, and I just think that's unreasonable.
That, I agree, that's unreasonable. If there are people on staff that are working up here, then for sure this room should, if it's gonna be used at all, it should be quiet.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be for a meeting.
Yeah, and then the other thing I think too is I think we need to specify in the partnership agreements, you know, both of them talked about community service hours. I think those need to be flushed out a little bit in terms of, you know, not only quantity, but also what's the mechanism for tracking. Cause I know we did that previously with, the community room where we did the concept of credits. And I know that was tracked for a little while, but then it no longer was tracked, so, I think we need to make sure that there's a tracking mechanism. I don't know if we put that on them or on us, or how we do that, but I think there needs to be some type of tracking mechanism. So that's just, I just wanted to throw those out there at the beginning before we start talking about the individual organizations.
Yeah,
I think along with tracking, we should also have in writing what will happen if they don't
All right.
meet the required hours. Whether they have to reimburse for the time that they weren't credited, or the full amount of what they had used, just something.
I support this idea of tracking too, and, you know, we already, as Bruce mentioned, there was a point where community organizations could use volunteer hours to accumulate credits to rent city space. We already have a metric. Like, how much is each hour worth in terms of the cost of renting space? So maybe we could look into the previous policy around that to see if we can come up with a equivalency of hours spent to room hour usage.
So my question is, wasn't this flushed out, didn't we overall approve the partnership agreements, the actual, parameters of it, things like that?
No, the way we ended up agreeing and putting it in the facility rental agreement, there's two ways to go about it. So we do this partnership agreement where it's kind of more open-ended and we kind of flush out between us and whatever group. Or there's an option for nonprofits to get a one-time discount, and then that would just be approved by me.
Did the organizations that are entering in these partnership agreements also have to be 501c3s?
Not the way we have it
They're
worked.
not required, right?
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
That's why we had it as an individual or group.
Right, and that was one of the things that I was struggling with, initially. I mean, I warmed up a little bit more to the women's club proposal, even though they drew it after I read it, but, you know, I still have a little bit of a concern there, and that's a private group. They do, you know, I think they're a 501c3, I believe, but there are, you know, it's a social group, so there's some social aspect to it, and it's a charge for, membership type of group. So I still, I'm still struggling with that one a little bit, but, you know, the other ones aren't. I mean, the historical. I'm just kidding. The historical society's really not asking for, you know, they're asking to be able to provide a service to the residents and asking for a space for doing it. The Boys to Men is providing, you know, community hours. So, yeah, it's not a private organization. Looks like you wanna say something.
Yeah, to that extent, I mean, that's something that we did address it briefly, too, not specifically that, but the ability for organizations to charge, you know, charge a ticket or admission fee, or to utilize public, facilities for fundraising purposes. You know, it made me think of when you said that the pay to attend type thing. You know, currently our ordinances prohibit that conduct, so my recommendation that if that's something that council would want to allow on a case-by-case basis, like in types of situations like this, that, you know, the amendment to the prohibition against it be similar to what, you know, we allow, for, you know, except for prior authorization of council, so we allow for, people to have,
Fundraisers.
gaming, lottery, games of chance, except permitted by state law and approved by city council.
So modify the ordinance.
So modify the ordinance to allow for it when approved by city council. So just that, that was a point that we had talked about, I know, a couple months ago, I just wanted to bring that back up again.
I mean, and the DDA in the past has used the community room to host like winter, retail market, winter market type activities. So it's kind of like the city can use the community room for a commercial venture that supports members of the DDA and other merchants that are signing up for that event, but then residents and organizations cannot, so.
So should there be like, cause everybody's proposal looks different, should there be like, since we're talking about stipulations and things like that, a different, like a fleshed out form that you have them fill out, and then bring it back to the council, or no? Is that-
Kinda seems like every one of these is gonna be different.
Yeah, that's the issue, and that's why I had individual conversation with every single group that, because the way this starts is if people reach out to me via phone or email and they ask how we go about this, and just like we discussed when we came up with this idea, we kind of wanted to put the burden on those groups and have them put some effort into this, where they had to come up with what they wanted from the city and what they're willing to give back. And once they get that, then I can work with them to kind of turn it into a more formal document, throw the whole harmless in there and kind of negotiate with what we're looking for.
Okay, I'm just saying, but now we're saying 2 instead of 3, so they're.
Well, they were saying three, they were.
I know what I'm saying,
three.
but I think as a whole, everybody was on board with 2, so I'm saying, is this document, basically, they need to edit the document.
Well, that's when we go back with them, either if they're here at the meeting tonight, you can ask them that, or if we table them all and I go back and negotiate with them and say what you guys said and
Well,
see what happens.
probably would make sense for each of them just to talk among us and figure out
Yeah.
what we wanna offer to them. I mean, that's a negotiation essentially.
Well, I'd like to have the metrics that we were talking about that we had before for community credits, community volunteer credits that could be used for room rentals. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, so I'm not sure how many hours.
Right, but I think that was a little bit different in that in that policy, we were allowing them to work hours to put dollars towards, so hours equated to dollars. I mean, I don't know if we wanna do it that way or just.
Seems to me you should, like, if we're gonna be having community organizations that don't have a partnership agreement to build up community credits to rent space based on some sort of measurement, then why not use that same metric
It's fair.
for organizations that have a partnership?
I think that idea as well.
Yeah,
We need to know what that metric is, so we need to go back and look at that policy to figure it out.
yeah. Again, though, I think with a cap on it in terms of the number of times they can, cause they can get enough hours to rent the room 8 times, and again, there's an opportunity cost for that for us, so, again, within the cap.
Yeah, no, I like this, the proposal of 2 free rentals with only one being on the weekend, that seems fair, especially given financial constraints you mentioned. We had a couple other things, so part of the Boys to Men proposal includes a designated area for announcements. Did you talk about that with them?
Yeah, that was something we talked about, cause naturally, people wanna advertise with the city. I get asked all the time if we throw things in the newsletter, if we post things right on, not even the bulletin board, but like on the main city administration display, we'll walk up. So that's something we talked about, I didn't see any major issue with it, so if we had a partnership agreement where they're allowed to have a little section for voice to man information, I didn't see.
So would that be like on the existing bulletin board, or would it be a separate display? How big is this?
And that's something that I'd have to work out with me and Mark. Saying it. If we wanna get incredibly specific about everything, then I'd say we'd have to throw all these in the trash and restart them. Cause if I have to go back and say, hey, you get 8 by 11, you're allowed 2 pieces of paper, 8 by 11s, they go here, and that's the way that's what you guys wanna do, then we have to rewrite these entire things.
Fair enough.
Yeah. For some of these, like, things like that, I was trying to leave enough leeway in there with them where we could be flexible depending on what's going on.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, the other thing I just thought of, or actually missed in my notes, the other thing I was thinking too is that, you know, giving them the use of the room, you know, that's not really, in some ways, it's not a cost to us, cause the room is just sitting unless we were gonna rent it, but in terms of like the cleanup fee and so forth, I mean, that's an actual cost that we are expending, so I would assume that if we give them, you know, 2 free uses of the room, that they would still be paying the fee to clean it up, or are we saying we're gonna heed that?
Yeah.
We're saying we're gonna eat that. The, Boys to Men proposal specifically said that they would take responsibility for cleaning up the
Yeah.
kitchen.
Because of the kitchen,
They use the
right?
kitchen. But
Yeah.
we would still need to have
Yeah.
a proper full cleaning, right? So-
Right, so there'll have to be something in the partnership agreement then that says they're responsible for cleaning back up to our standards.
Or not, and the city eats that cost.
Right.
Because they're a partner.
Right.
Right, now we're treating them differently because they're in a partnership agreement.
Well, again, this is something that Mike and I did talk about specifically with the use of like the city van. If there's an outward expenditure of public funds, then that shouldn't happen. They should either clean their room in lieu of the cleaning fee or reimburse the city for the
Right,
cleaning fee.
that's what I thought.
Yeah, there shouldn't be.
So we could put something in the agreement that states that. Then they have the option of either cleaning it themselves. Somebody has to go and check and make sure it's done properly, right? I guess if they don't, then we clean it and we
Then we
charge
get
them.
billed for it.
Scott, the hold harmless, is that pretty much just saying the city's not liable for shenanigans that occur on their behalf?
Pretty much, yeah.
Anything else? Finance Review Committee.
Oh, so did we wanna put together our proposals or our offers to them for each of these two, or did we, or,
That feels like anything.
yeah, well, that's why I'm saying it now, but is that, or do we?
I'm suggesting we table that decision so that we can get additional information around things like the
Cost per
number of
hour.
hours to cost of the room ratio from previous policies, so we can use that as a metric. Also, it gives us the opportunity to include in our proposal back to them, which we could have like just email to them, you know, here are some parameters that we wanna include. And they can tell us if they're okay with it or not, and then update the proposal based on that.
So they wouldn't be having a conversation, like you said, tonight with us, or no? We're tabling, or?
I think that that's the right thing to do. I know we got these 2 proposals in front of us, but they're not. Based on the discussion we just had, I think it would be tough to approve them, so we should table that decision.
What's the toughness for the Lakewood Village Historical Society?
I'm talking about the agenda for partnership agreements.
I know, but you're approving
There's
one,
3 of them.
there's the 3 individual ones, so why would you put the Historical Society on, for a table?
Well, I guess if we're feeling like that is fine the way it is, then you're right.
No, I hear it more of, having an issue more with the Boys to Men one, and then the women's group is off, so the Historical Society has nothing.
We can leave that on the air.
Yeah, leave that on table, the other two.
So for the historical society, we're pretty much, they're just requesting storage in a room that we are not utilizing. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, use the space, store things down there, and then.
And we don't have any
use.
usage, we have no usage whatsoever from the city that.
For us, it's storage as well. Yep.
But they don't, so say like next year, they say, hey, we wanna have an event, do they need to come back, or?
Yeah, the idea of these is these have to get reviewed every single year.
Okay.
Well, and that wouldn't be in the partnership agreement.
Yeah.
The partnership agreement is gonna be for you know, space in the fitness center. And it's not gonna include anything about them using the community room, so if they wanna use the community room, they'd have to amend the partnership agreement or wait till the next year and redo it,
Or pay for it.
or pay for it.
Good
Yeah.
for it.
Anything else? Finance Review Committee.
So we've had a couple study sessions, we talked about establishing a finance review committee. And in your guys' packet, there are 5 applications for consideration. We discussed having a board of 5, 4 of which would be committee members at large, and then a council appointee. The purpose of this committee, as you guys know, is just kind of come up with a game plan for the city for the next couple of years to figure out how to review our options of additional revenue for the city. So, purpose of this study session discussion is kind of go over the applications, see if you guys have any questions, or see how you guys want to move forward.
We have great candidates.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
all well qualified, so it's nice to see. So much interest. Do you have any recommendations that you come
Oh,
up with?
I have my recommendations already.
I didn't have any other questions about it.
It's good for-
No more questions or anything for the finance review committee? Moving on to fiscal year 24 to 25 budget.
So this is kind of continued conversation before we have our public hearing at our next meeting and potentially adopt this budget. Just to see if you guys have any other questions before we end the meeting.
One question on page 68 of the packet.
Yep.
Of this,
Of the council meeting packet. So it says water main project 325,000, but it looks like you dropped that in the
Yeah, we dropped that in the fund so that we need to be added in.
yeah, it's not need to be added in. And then one expenditure that I don't know if I couldn't find it in the chart, in the spreadsheets, or it was missing here. Where's the fee for, we dump our leaves at Huntington Woods, is it? Ferndale. Is that in here? I didn't see that anywhere.
I believe it's under the leaf collection.
Right, cause I've got, is that the miscellaneous expenditures for 1,000? Cause then the other was 7,000 for refuse equipment, and that's why I was wondering if it was in there. I thought it was more than 1,000, but maybe I'm,
It's part of that 7,000, so.
Part of the 7,000,
Yeah, that's
okay.
that roll off when I get struck off, to like, burn it.
excellent.
On page 73 of the regular meeting packet, the, goals and performance measures for the council are in there. It looks a little out of place.
Yeah, no, that'll get taken out.
Okay, I was making sure it doesn't end up in the resolution.
No, your guys' resolution is only the, like, 3-4 page document that's in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then did I miss it, or do we have the fiscal year start and end balances for the water sewer fund? I didn't see it in there.
Mine got cut off when I moved it over.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that. Yeah, it looks like I cut it off and it made it in there. So I can get that to you.
Yeah.
I appreciate how you reorganized the budget, as Bruce had suggested in the last meeting. It's much easier to understand.
Yeah, I couldn't make it as pretty as years past. Naturally, I just didn't have enough time.
Right.
It's fine.
Right.
Just
And
the
that-
organization of it is the
Yeah.
important.
Right, well, I disagree. The
Yeah.
organization, I think, is great. I mean, it was.
It's not perfect, I know.
Right, no, I love the way you did it and got it, section by section, and you paginated and everything. I still think if you could find some time over the next year, I just, for transparency's purposes, I just really think having some type of verbiage with some graphs and trends, I think that really helps. I mean, for us who are in the budget theoretically regularly, we're familiar with it, but if a resident wants to pick that up and wants to do an investigation or learn more about a specific area, it's really hard to do it without seeing the verbiage and so forth. So if you have time, I mean, I'll keep asking, but but, you know, if you have some bits and pieces of time here and there, maybe you and Michelle can work on wrapping some more verbiage around that and.
I think once
Charge
we
it.
get fully staffed, I think some.
Right,
a little
right,
more
I
freedom and
totally
maybe-
get it, but I'm just gonna keep bringing it up, because especially in, you know, with all the eyes on us in
Oh,
terms of
I get it, don't
transparency,
worry.
I think that'll really help, but it was so much better, yeah, so. So
And
thank you for doing
For
that.
your water sewer fund balance, it looks like it's gonna potentially increase 2%. We'll go from about 8.468743. Actually, it's gonna say, oh, there we go. I lied. Yeah, 8468 to 8470 million. So we're zero, technically 0%. But
I'm good. I would just like to see, like, I guess in the future, the negative 72% for the community garden. Like, I just want to see if you can work on figuring out how to bring that revenue back up to where it was. And maybe getting the residents more active with the garden. So I would just want to task you with that.
yeah, it did include some revenue based off your feedback, and then we actually did see people start paying, so I know money will come in, but
Okay.
seeing that $1,800 number, if I see it this year, then.
Then you can adjust it for next year.
Right, yeah. Mhm.
Anything else? Going on to city council goal setting?
So this is kind of a continuation based off our last study session. I know we had a good discussion, a lot of work. The purpose is kind of refine those some more, make them a little more tangible for you guys.
There's a lot to do. I think it's all important based on our conversation last time. I like the high level items. We can, figure out where the focus should be in terms of specific tasks under each one of those topics. Goals, you know, the high level goals of transparency, budget and fiscal visibility, viability, community enhancement, business and economic development, and dedication to service. Those make sense. I think these are good things for documenting for us.
Thanks for a decent handwriting, Mayor. Really helps.
Any other questions, concerns? City administrator performance goals.
So it'll be the same thing for these, as these are financial based, we kinda wanna make them as specific as possible, so we can have that clear target for what you guys want. And then we kinda narrow it down, we can improve at tonight's meeting, and now we know what we're all shooting for.
Yeah, so some of these are subjective,
Mhm.
right? So I think on time and balanced budgets is pretty objective, like no or not, if you're reading that one, but something like rational expenses is kind of subjective, so I'm not sure if that's a good measurement for that one. I know we talked about it last.
Yeah, and once again, these are just notes based on what we talked about, so.
Yeah.
I'm sure Scott will have an opinion on making it specific too, so. I'm just gonna see what you guys want in here and go from there.
So I would suggest that for budget and finance, we just leave it at on time and balanced budgets, because that's the objective measurement that we can point to.
And one of the most important things you do.
For sure. For city staff, so some of the similar thing, filling vacant positions in a timely manner, what exactly is a timely manner? Also, you don't have a lot, total control over it, depends on the number of applicants available, whether or not they accept an offer or not, like, there's a lot of things in there. I would say maybe focus it more on, posting openings for vacant positions within 14 days of an opening, and that's something that's measurable, right? And triggers the process of actually backfilling that position.
I like 7 days.
Yeah, that's how I was gonna say a week.
You've been meeting a better than 7 day
Right,
metric up to this
right,
point
he's
anyway, so.
quick as- Person's out the door, the thing has been up.
So it's, I would come down to, I'm good with either of those numbers, it's kind of goes, Mike, to what you would feel is, reasonable amount of time.
Getting posted, I, shoot 7.
Okay.
7, okay, great.
What about 3?
Business or regular?
Business, regular days.
4 regular, 3 business.
So if they leave on Friday, means we have a Monday, this Friday counts.
7 calendar days.
I'd like 7 calendar days.
Okay.
Employee retention is another, like how you measure it, right? So it's, you're gonna have naturally some, employees that may leave for other opportunities or any reason that has nothing to do with their satisfaction in their job. So is it like no more than 25% rollover, 10%, 5%, 10%?
More than 2 staff members, or thinking out loud here.
Yeah, well, 2 staff members would depend on,
That'd be
are you fully
20%.
staffed or not, right? I
Right.
mean,
No, not for like 2 members, like, you know. It doesn't matter if he's got 8 people or 6 people, I think the starting point.
I just argue that the more people you have on staff, the
The
more
more likely,
likelihood
right.
you are to have
Right.
some.
Right.
Why did we care about employee retention?
So part of that
And-
is, it's,
The reason I should say the reason I asked is that just sounds dumb. I'm wondering if we were trying to make sure that we're keeping employees. I think one measure of that could be their comfort here with their working conditions. And if that is a case, we could issue a survey, to all of the workers. And if Mike does above a certain percent, that might hit that. Might be easier to capture that as opposed to employee retention. Might be easier to poll the workers we have to see what their feel of the climate is.
I would argue that, more, accurate assessment of employee satisfaction would be whether or not they're willing to stay in their job or not, as opposed to what they would write in the survey. It's a small staff, it's hard to stay anonymous, even if you make the surveys anonymous.
What's the issue? I mean, so let's say if Mike knows who said this bad thing about him and they get in trouble, then they submit a complaint and Mike gets in trouble.
That could happen. But I could also see the flip of that where like, you know, Mike's concerned about meeting this employee retention, metric, and so it doesn't let somebody go that he might otherwise consider letting go, even though they're not a great fit for the staff, right? We don't wanna put them in that position.
Or an employee doesn't wanna be forthcoming on a survey because they know it's identifiable.
That's, yeah.
But I think overall, basically, we just had a lot of turnover, so.
Yeah,
We're just basically saying like, is Mike upkeeping the morale in the office? And we're
so it's the
determining
best way to
that
gauge
by
that,
like,
if they stay.
yeah, basically. I mean, and then he has the other goal of how quickly is he filling vacant positions. So I think those two could go hand in hand with each other. If someone does resign, how quickly can he fill the position? So, yeah, I think the survey, I think maybe there could be some collaboration, but in some cases, I feel like it can be a little dangerous, just encouraging people to just air dirty laundry for no reason. Maybe they don't want to, or, you know, maybe they're fine and they just have one situation occur, you know, I don't know. I think it could be a little dangerous of us determining just by the survey, but I'm not against the survey.
I'm not against it either, just as an idea of staff engagement, right, to get them to actually provide some feedback, but
Yeah, if we had like 1,000 staffers, people would feel more safe to say their opinions, but
Exactly.
9 people, you kind of know most of their personalities, so.
That's
So
what
I
I
mean,
think.
Mike doesn't, so I guess if that were I don't even know if it's possible, if we did do a survey, Mike wouldn't be able to review the survey.
Well, I mean, even though he can't, well, who will be reviewing the survey, would it be?
So that part, I'm not sure what would happen, because that's typically his role, but if it's a survey about him, we he shouldn't be able to.
Shouldn't be a survey about him, it should be a
Yes.
survey about your satisfaction in your job.
In your
Of course,
job.
who you work for, or that's not the only thing.
Yeah, I also like the staff member attending training, to probably put a percentage on it as opposed to every, 80% or something like that. I mean,
What do you mean?
Oh, yeah, like not all staff, but maybe.
I think, why not all staff?
well, no, I think ideally all staff, but,
Oh.
there may be not, maybe there's something that's not appropriate for, I don't know, there's always something that's appropriate, but.
I think it's appropriate
Yeah.
for each staff member to attend at least one
Yeah.
professional development training, cause
Yeah.
there's something that someone
Yeah,
can
there's
improve on
something,
each year.
there's something.
We got some budget to support it, we can find free training sessions that would count towards that metric.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that one, I'm also okay with develop a succession plan, cause if the document succession plan, then you see that document that one's done.
Yeah.
The employee retention one, it's struggling how to make that objective. But to the point we were making earlier, the important aspect of it is culture shift in the city offices, right? That it's a place that's desirable to work for, it's an aspirational role to be a part of our city staff.
Yeah, I think we could do like an overall survey of like, but not something just focusing on Mike. I don't know, it just seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're saying, repeat your goal for the survey.
I think what you imagined me saying is what I said. And as we've talked about it, I don't think it's a good idea for them to just, hey, how do you think Mike's doing? I do think it's a good idea to get their opinion of the climate, not just how they think he's doing.
So if we can, put together an employee satisfaction survey, and then once a year, all the employees who are on city staff complete that survey. And then we have to think about who's gonna be responsible for building that survey, is it gonna be the five of us as the city council body? Do we work with a consultant to do it, like, how do we pull it off? But I think that something like that is like just generating the survey and getting responses from all the staff is a measurable goal.
A suggestion on that would be, you're already doing a performance review that is collected and kind of consolidated by the mayor, maybe as part of that process, not necessarily tied to the performance, but that's where you would send out your employee survey, and then those results can kind of be incorporated into, if appropriate, his review, or just to get a pulse of what the staff is doing.
I like that. Cause I didn't want it to be like, there's an issue, so now you need to do the survey.
It should be like a specified time,
Right.
everybody does it,
Right.
I like that. So if we would change employee retention to annually, collect employee satisfaction surveys.
Doesn't even roll off the tongue.
No, just made it up. Something like that.
But are we removing the goal for employee retention?
It's too vague. You can't, how do you measure it?
Well, if we're saying annually collect employee satisfaction survey, are we going to specify like satisfactory or above, or, is there a rating, or is it just the fact that he's collecting them?
The employee
or-
satisfaction survey
But
that
the
we just
employees are
discussed
satisfied.
is about how satisfied they are working for Mike, working in
Right.
the city,
Right.
it's an overall satisfaction of your job.
So the idea then here is that it's his goal to make sure that that happens, so that we as a whole know how the city is, the government is being perceived by the people who work
That's
at
the
it.
way I'm looking at it, 'cause
Okay,
so even
that's
if the
fine.
result of the survey is everything sucks,
Right.
you still would
He
get
still met
credit
his
for the
goal
goal.
because, right.
But
so-
now we have important information that we can use
Right.
to make
So
decisions.
it's,
going
it's
forward.
twofold, it's his goal, but it's also getting us feedback for how events, yeah.
And it helps us put our finger on the pulse of like, well, is the culture of the city office
Changing.
going in the right direction or not?
With you.
I don't know, I think, I definitely like the survey, but I'm also like, well, what if we do start seeing employees leave, like, why shouldn't we be looking into that? I mean, why shouldn't it be?
If we do
I think
see that.
if everyone left for good reasons, that would be, that's the only reason I don't like that metric. metric. At least that metric solely. But if people are leaving and then we get our surveys and we also can tell that like, hey, the workplace here is great, but there are, you know, 4 people that come in and berate employees and they don't like that. I mean, those employees still might leave, but at the very least, then we have something that we could try to work towards, if that were the case. I think they do go hand in hand, but the only thing I don't like about mainly doing our retention is if people leave because like they're happy, they're doing great, but they just got a better job offer, and they're closer to home or something like
So
that.
why would somebody get a better job offer if they weren't looking for a new job?
In my line of work, they say you should always be looking for a new job. You shouldn't be at a place for more than 2 years in software engineering.
So, still, that's you being satisfied with your job, whether it's money, whether it's location, rather than not you're satisfied with the way that the office runs. It's still a satisfaction score. I personally think that it should be at least 80% every year of keeping 80% retention rate of the staff. If someone said 2 people,
I just threw 80%
so
out there.
80%. I mean, that's
How many staff do we have?
it's simple.
But I also don't think it should be necessarily like a bad thing that, you know, maybe 2 people left. I don't know. I don't think, me looking at this, I would say we're punishing Mike because 2 people left. Also, I think it's
Maybe
more
not be
like,
punished.
Well, that's why there are multiple goals on
right,
there,
that's what I'm saying.
right? If you, like, so you miss one, but you hit the other 3, then the vast majority of that bonus still gets paid, right? So.
Right, but if you're removing the staff retention, then, I mean, why can't you leave it in there? If he doesn't meet it, then he just gets $1,500 instead of $2,000.
I think we can leave it in there, as long as it's measurable. Like, if you wanna say 80%,
And the big thing you wanna think of too is it's gotta be attributable to him and his performance of the job. So if someone that worked here before he got hired, you know, ups and finds a better job or is unhappy, then it may not necessarily be with Mike. If you're trying to encourage him to hire candidates that are gonna be here for, you know, a long period of time, which, you know, eliminates the need for the city to have to go without staff or retrain staff as the turnover occurred, and maybe tie it to that 80%, tie it to people that he's hired, and so that he's a little more selective, or when he is hiring people that he's, you know, one of the criteria he's looking for is someone that isn't gonna be looking for a job every 2 years, someone that's willing to, you know, and then maybe tie it to a period of time of how long they are with the city, so, you know, except, again, this is supposed to be annual, so it doesn't work out, but, everyone's here a year, okay, he gets it, but, 2 years, sorry, gotta pay it back, but, no, I think just maybe that way eliminates, you know, people that have been here and maybe have been looking for jobs for a period of time, and it's not necessarily attributed to something that Mike has or hasn't done.
That's fine.
My thoughts on that.
I like the idea, not for us, but I know a lot bigger companies do like exit interviews where they actually try to figure out why people left.
We do that.
We do that.
With whom? Do they all happen with Mike?
Everyone that's left so far.
I think before that it was a form, wasn't it?
It's a form they fill out,
Yeah,
and
it's
you
a form
still
they fill
talk
out.
to the city manager.
Yeah.
and it was at the employee discretion, they didn't have to fill.
Fill the form out.
Choice.
Yeah, you never have.
Yeah, you never have.
It's always nice to set the application.
So how do we frame that? How do we state that metric?
Of employees Mike has hired, overseeing their hiring. If 80% of them are still here after a year, 80% or more, then, no.
Well, one thing that's gonna be difficult about measuring that is the timing of his performance, right? If you say they have to be here for, well, I guess of the people who've been there for a year.
At the time of the evaluation,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and again, if 100%, he gets 100%, if 90%, he gets 90%, 80%, 80%, if everybody quits, then he doesn't get that bonus.
actual, 2023 annual employee turnover rate is roughly between 80 and 90%. That's the national average measured towards.
So, yeah, I,
Nationally, 80 to 90%.
That seems
of companies
really
lose
high.
employees? Or that's.
Sorry.
that's turnover
That's
for
retention or-
all
or
reasons.
turnover?
As I
Got a better
said,
job,
its
died.
average retention
Like, I mean.
rate is between 80 and
Retention, I think you
90%.
said turnover.
Oh, my bad.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking 80 to 90% of people change jobs every year. Everybody's a software developer.
Wait, I'm trying to get one of those web guys or like.
So I don't know, like Peg can get it like 100%, you get 100% of that
Of that
bonus,
core
90, like that seems a little bit, I'd rather pick a number and just say above it. You may, you get the credit below it, you don't. So we maybe give it a little bit of leeway, maybe say 70% or 75% retention.
Sure.
I'm okay with either because, especially because of the amount of money, I imagine this will be split up into quarters amongst that section, so.
Right, so it's relatively
I'm okay
small, we're
with
talking
that.
about a relatively small. Right,
Hey, whoa,
yeah.
so. What kind of dog food are you buying?
So something like, retention of 75% of staff hired by the city administrator.
This city.
This city administrator, currently active city administrator being reviewed at the time of their review.
I think he's got it.
Yeah, the city still employs 75% of those hired by the city administrator at the time of evaluation.
Took the words right out of your mouth.
That was brilliant, way better than I said it. Thank you. So I think that's that for that, and then residents and community attending the school community, but that's recorded, pretty straightforward, so that's great.
So for that one, are we making them post a selfie?
And tag us.
Yeah. At the city?
Pretty sure I'll see you guys.
Just checking. Well, if we're all sick, how do we know you were there?
Appreciate you guys.
Or I could just check our Instagram.
Selfie stream.
Anything else? Hearing none, now to public comments.
Hi, I'm Carol Green. I just, back to the partnership agreement thing, being a volunteer on the Parks and Rec Committee, we are working hard to, keep our vision on the fact that the city is struggling financially and make all of our events self-sustaining, so we're not, excuse me, taking money out of the budget. And so for me, it's kind of a slap in the face to see the city offer other groups to come in for free when, and not even pay to, for the cleanup fees. When that's costing the city money, it just doesn't sit well with me. Excuse my emotional stuff, but just please hear my words.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Hearing none, mayor and council comments? Hearing none, I make a adjournment.
Were you gonna say something? You were about to open your mouth.
I was gonna say something. I guess I hear what you're saying, Carol. And I would just say that, the organizations that are entering into partnership agreements with the city will be providing benefits to the city that they should get some credit for. You can have an argument about, or discussion about what the credit is, whether
Right.
it's free use of the room, ability to use the room and not pay for a cleaning fee, but it's not just a handout. Like, there's something the city is gonna be getting back in return. It may not be the exchange of cash that somebody renting the room is doing with the city when they're running it on their own personally. It could be, volunteers to do some activity multiple times throughout the course of the year. So it may not be obvious what the benefit to the city is.
Fair
right?
enough.
So just, that's something I keep in mind when I'm thinking about that. Yeah.
Anything else?